Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the May 5th, 2021 episode of the Cybersecurity Stream. My name, as always, is Neil Bridges, and thank you for joining me today. Welcome to all of our new joiners as well as our regular visitors. Real conversations with real people that is direct from one of our guests. But before we get started with that, I have two amazing announcements from the community that I want to share out there. I literally just got one of these messages literally right before we started stream. So listen up. If you see not a bot in Twitch chat or in Discord, throw your hands together, give some cheers for not a bot. He just let me know literally right before the stream started. This is reading right out of my DMs. All right, Neil, I got the job. I'll be posting it on LinkedIn soon. Listen to this. It's very important. 0 to 100 in 3 months. 3 months. No certs. None. No certs. Just I&E, try hack me, and your challenge from David Bomble's video. Security engineer, doubled my salary thanks to you and the wonderful people in the community. That's on you guys. If you see not a bot, give him some hands up. And then the second one, our very, very own Nathan, Calm Bomb Diggity Shell, inside a chat. I saw him in there earlier. If you remember when Carmen and I were in North Carolina last time, and we had Joel on the stream, and Joel put me on the spot and asked me a tough question, and I flipped it right back around over to Joel and told Joel that if he gave somebody in this community an internship for me answering one of his questions, I'd answer one of his questions. And lo and behold, Calm Bombshell, he got the internship. And he just posted on LinkedIn. He is a cybersecurity. Let me make sure I get this right because I want to do it justice. He is a cloud security engineer for Lucidum based on that internship that he got with Joel. Give your hands together, put it all together, give those guys a round of applause. And listen, share your success stories with me, share your success stories on this community. Love to share them with everybody else. Congratulations to those folks who are listening, participating in this community, changing their careers. That is what we are all about here. So you can catch us here every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on the Cyber and Security channel. We really are here to have real conversations with real people about the state of cybersecurity and really elevate that conversation to a much, much broader audience. Now, the reason why we do this is because we have a problem. We have a problem in our industry where we don't have real conversations about the topics that affect the cybersecurity industry, the people in it, or the companies that we protect. Now listen, cybersecurity is an ever-changing landscape, and our goal is really focus on multiple aspects of that industry here on the stream. You know what time it is. I'm talking directly to you. Yes, you. You can hear me, and you can see me. You are not out of your league on this channel. You are right here where you belong, no matter how many years you've been in cyber, no matter your discipline, red team or blue team, risk and governance, it does not matter. Doesn't matter. We are here to discuss the industry impacts of the current landscape and the art of the possible when dealing with today's cybersecurity issues. So whether you're an experienced veteran or whether you're new to the field, whether you barely know how to spell cyber or somebody who was born in cyber, this stream is for you. Yes, you. We are here for everybody to learn and participate from our community. With that in mind, we regularly try to have professionals from across the industry. I kind of counterbalance the lack of professionalism from Jeff and I by bringing in a true professional tonight. I'll introduce her kind of in my next segment here. We also do have moderators in chat. I want to personally thank my moderators for their support and dedication each and every single stream. Moderators are here to keep chat free from sexist, racist, misogynistic, elitist, and otherwise toxic behavior. We have zero tolerance for toxicity. We have zero tolerance for toxicity. And I trust my moderators explicitly, and their decision is final. If you are put on a timeout or ban, you appeal to them, not to me. They are not here to stifle chat at all. As a matter of fact, moderators are here to make sure that your voices get heard. It's been a day for toxicity. If you saw my post starting first thing this morning, I'm not going to get too much into it. You kind of saw the post that I made this morning. That carried over. I think I probably got hit from some level of toxicity on every means of social media. But listen here, I want you to know something. You see this? This is excited Neil. Neil doesn't care about your toxicity. You know why? Because Neil loves you anyway. Neil still wants you to be successful. And your toxicity isn't going to bring me or this community down whatsoever, because this team is awesome. Everybody on it. So whatever. We got moderators, take care of that toxicity, because we are here for everybody to participate and learn from this stream. We will be answering questions on stream. Our special guests will be answering questions. Your questions are very important to us, and they are the prime value that comes from our stream being live. However, we do ask that you ask your question only once. Spamming might result in a timeout or ban. I promise you, all the moderators do see the questions and do make sure we get as many questions answered in our stream together. So ask them at any time. I'll give my copious demo. This is called a keyboard. You may have one that is separate or attached to your laptop. You simply use that chat function down at the very bottom of the screen. You start typing those fancy words right there on a keyboard. A moderator magically grabs it up out of the ether, sticks it into a queue. I grab it, I read it, we ask it in chat. We ask it of our guests, we ask it of me, whatever the case is, we will ask it for anybody. So ask those questions anytime about any topic, whether it's on stream or top of mind, and I promise you, we will do our absolutely best to address them. Now, we do broadcast via Twitch for our regularly scheduled broadcast, but you can find videos either on the video section of Twitch or by going to our YouTube channel. Make sure you hit that exclamation point socials. Do follow us on all of our social media accounts, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. I get to say no more Clubhouse now because now that Twitter's got spaces, you can catch us over on Twitter Spaces. Get the crap out of here, Clubhouse. There'll be no more Clubhouse in this house. We are here for you, the community, and we do strive to bring you the most intriguing opinions, points of view, and conversations in the cyber industry every stream. We appreciate all of our followers. We appreciate all of our subscribers. Just see the notification down there for the Hype Train Level 2. Thank you very much for the Hype Train. First and foremost, I'd like to thank all of our veterans for their service and sacrifice. All past, present, and potentially future veterans who are thinking about joining in the near future. At the end of the day, we ultimately do this for you, the viewers, and none of this would be possible. None of this would be possible without you. Yes, you. And so our biggest thanks goes out to all of you. We have been, and we will continue to deliver you content as long as we can, and any and all proceeds earned on the stream do go directly to continuing to improve the quality of the content and the giveaways. Now that that is out of the way, I'm gonna bring my token old guy into the mix. Good evening, sir.
Hello. How you doing tonight?
I'm good, man.
You have had your second cup of coffee today.
I have had my second cup of coffee. I grabbed the second wind and I brought it in. It was
maybe
definitely
a third.
Maybe a third. I had to take the edge off with a little.
Carmen got you a double shot of espresso before you had a double shot of bourbon.
And you know her; she wouldn't let it be the bad espresso. She's all over.
Right? Exactly. She actually drove to Starbucks and picked it up for you.
Oh no! See, that's where you went wrong. She wouldn't touch Starbucks with a 10-foot pole at all. Like she's like, no. You gotta remember, she spent time in Milan. There's no way that Starbucks even measures to that.
No, that is a good point. But like, you're in North Carolina. Where do you find a good cup of coffee?
I'll let you know when I find one. Welcome everybody to our Wednesday segment. Hopefully everybody's had a fantastic week so far. I'm super excited for tonight's guest. I know Jeff, I know you are too. We've talked about this, pretty extensively. Before we get into that, Jeff, I want to kind of share some intern updates. You were here last week when we announced the interns. Yeah. Currently, we've got the interviews scheduled for Friday, Saturday, and Monday. So we're going to spread them out over 3 days, just given the schedules that we've been able to work out with people. We've got California and Cyber Lola on Friday morning. We've got D on Saturday, and we've got Angry Amoeba on Monday. So those are the current, interview schedules that we've got lined out. Just a reminder for all of our interview candidates, interviews are going to be 30 minutes each. There's going to be the same question set's going to be to all 4 interviewees with feedback provided in my normal A through F scale with a couple of notes. And we will provide feedback at the end of that interview on that spot. I have a couple of tech tests already scheduled for some of the interviewees. If you feel you need to do a tech test, make sure you do reach out to me before your interview so we can get that done. Otherwise, going in, I'm assuming you're good to go. You're ready to do the interview. Also, just as a side note, and Jeff, you'll appreciate this because I know this was one of your huge recommendations of the last couple of weeks as we've kind of talked about this. I have had 2 people now actually reach out to me with some follow-on questions from their business cases, doing some research, asking me some questions, some really, really good questions from one of the candidates. He's been, I could say that without giving away who it is, but this candidate's been pestering me almost every day with some questions, preparing for their interviews. So yeah.
Here's for every candidate: pester away till Neil says no.
100%. 100%.
That is absolutely how I lived my life. Neil knows. Like
what? Pestering me? Yes.
The only reason we're friends now is because I pestered the crap out of him years ago.
Hold on.
Come on.
Friends. Let's make sure we're.
Oh no, time out. You have used that word.
Real quick, as Jeff mentioned, I just want all the candidates to know that is an option, right? In case you were thinking you had to go in blind, you absolutely don't have to go in blind. You can pester me with questions. You can drag me into sub chat. You can drag me into Discord. Happy to answer any questions you've got rolling into your respective interview slots. So,
yep. Here's a secret key.
Uh-oh.
No, this is a good one. Don't pester with a really dumb question. Like it is way better not to pester than to pester with a really dumb question. Think of your question. Think of what you're trying to get out of it and how it will influence your answers in an interview, and ask away.
Yeah. All right. Good advice.
That's all I'm going to say.
Good advice. If you want to go see more of Jeff's wonderful wisdom, make sure you go check last Wednesday's VOD and the Wednesday before that. I have had a couple people say that they have reviewed our Wednesday VODs pretty incessantly to try to get their notes up to date for the interview as well. So, all right. So without that's it. That's the only. Oh, actually, I had one other announcement. And Jeff, I announced this on Monday during Monday's stream. And I don't know if you knew this, so I'll take this as an opportunity to make you aware of this. Did you know that this was Mental Health Awareness Month?
I did.
Yeah. And so we talked about it a little bit on Monday. I shared a personal story of my own. This is an entire month on mental health awareness. I've talked a lot on stream, Jeff, about imposter syndrome kind of being the mental health issue of our time, when it comes to cybersecurity. But that really focuses on the career. And there's actually an entire spectrum of mental health that I don't think we talk enough about. So what we did something awesome. On Discord, we created a channel that is called You Are Not Alone. So if you hit !Discord, that's the theme for this year's Mental Health Awareness Month. And so if you hit !Discord, hop on over to Discord, you'll see a lot of people have started to actually share, Jeff, a lot of their just broader mental health stories. And the theme being that the more you share, the more you show that everybody out there is going through mental health, the more you realize that you're not alone in your mental health journey. And so I shared my story with everybody on Monday. You can go and watch the intro on Monday. You don't have to get very far to kind of see my story, my mental health journey when it comes to that. We've had a lot of people share it. And so if you need the support, you've got an entire community here. We welcome you to come share your mental health story over on our Discord page. All right. So with that being said, I'm going to stop talking. We have a special guest tonight, Jeff. We've had Joel on. We've talked about the role of some of the softer side of cybersecurity, not necessarily something that resides in a traditional security operations center or a SOC, really that whole different function, and arguably just as important, if not more important, is GRC, or governance, risk, and compliance. And so we've been scouring the LinkedIns, looking for the right first pass of folks to kind of jump into it. And out of the shadows of Sony Music came our guest for tonight. And so prior to being the Director of Information Security for Sony Music, she spent some time at Deloitte, which is one of the big fours that we've talked about frequently here on the stream, doing risk services for their global practice. So put your hype hands up, throw some bits out, drop the narwhals in there for my guest tonight, Miss Alex San Miguel. Alex, thank you so very much. On behalf of my moderators, on behalf of my community, on behalf of everybody who's going to watch this stream now and in the future, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And the floor is yours if you'd like to say a few words.
Neil, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to match your energy, but I'm going to try. Like Neil said, my name is Alexandria San Miguel. I go by Alex. I am a career-long tech risk professional. I've focused on cyber risk for the last 6 years. And I realized that you probably were looking at my LinkedIn before I updated it with my new role. So yes, I spent several years at Sony Music. But as of this week, I am actually now at Rent the Runway as the Director of Governance, Risk, and Compliance.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, I mean, you know, in all seriousness, people honestly don't really understand what GRC really means. But, you know, what it comes down to is policies, assessments, controls, processes, awareness training, all of that sort of falls under me. And that umbrella. So yes, it's the unspoken space of security. But as you said, Neil, super important. You don't do anything without considering risk. So anything in that world, I'm your person. Like I said, I'm super, super, super excited to be here. Some background about me, other than the professional stuff. I'm originally from Pennsylvania, but I live in Manhattan now. I studied at Temple University, go Owls. I love a good trivia game, and I seriously can't wait to get onto an airplane again. Hello.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I can't let you get away with saying that, you know, risk and governance is just policy and risk assessments and frameworks. It'd be a really, really short show and a really, really boring show if we did that. So let's dive into that just a little bit. And one of the things when I led up to doing tonight's stream, I told all the technical people, the blue teamers, the red teamers, you know, those folks who are, you know, got their heads in the keyboards and the ones and zeros, that they needed to tune in tonight because, you know, that whole side of a cybersecurity organization is more important than I think that they realize. And so can you kind of start with, and let's really talk about what are some of the core things that a GRC organization does and why are they important to not just the cybersecurity organization, but to an enterprise as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think first and foremost, information security is not a tech conversation. It's really an enterprise risk conversation. Everything that you do in terms of your cyberspace is really based on your risk appetite. You know, what are we willing to accept? And so all the decisions that you make in terms of, you know, the systems that you're standing up, how you're testing them, and what comes out of those tests, how you're pen testing them, all that, those results really are assessed based on, you know, what you're willing to accept. And that's what risk is. Each enterprise, each business has a different threat landscape and a different risk, which is really what that means is, you know, threats are risks, right? And in order for you to manage that, you need to really understand what those are. And then you start figuring out how to close any sort of gaps. And so, you know, anything that you're doing in terms of your technical controls, your technical processes, you know, all your firewalls, you know, when you're making decisions on, you know, how to prevent leaky buckets on the cloud, all of that is based on what are we willing to accept and not accept.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead, Jeff.
I was just going to say, timing's perfect here, right? Because you just changed jobs. My question is, how do you come into an organization and understand their appetite for risk in a way that makes sense to you? Because you've had Big Four consulting experience, you've had a large company experience and a little bit smaller company experience now. And how do you deal with, well, that word that they just used means something totally different to me than I think what they think it means? How do you start to get on the same playing field of how to communicate levels of risk and appetite for risk?
Well, I listen. It's just a lot. That's it. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
I laugh, you know? Because that is reality. I just
that's
listen.
Really it. It's literally I just listen. I talk to key stakeholders, you know, this is, you know, at all levels, because we're not just talking to executive teams. I mean, they obviously have the vision and the strategy, but it's, it's the front line that's doing, the heavy lifting on the day to day, and they're the folks who really understand day to day, what the business is doing, what they're seeing, and so it's having conversations at all those levels, understanding from them, what their challenges are, what their worries are. My first question when I walked in this week was, what keeps you up at night? Because I mean, they're going to tell me. We're on the same side. We're on the same team. So they're going to tell me, and you go from there.
When you're doing that, that what keeps you up at night, I guess, I would imagine that the most common thing that they talk about is something business related. Lost revenue,
depending on
downtime.
Depending on who I'm talking to. Yeah. I mean, the COO is going to tell me one thing, and the CIO is going to tell me something different, perhaps, right?
Well, hold on. I mean, why would they ever be different?
Well, because they have different perspectives. So, the business, and when I say the business right now, I'm talking non-technical. Their concerns, their worries aren't whether or not we're encrypting data out on the cloud. They're not thinking about that. They're not thinking about that. They might say something like,
they might not be able to spell
data
it
breach. Right, that too. I mean, I can't spell it, but that's neither here nor there. They're not. That's what they're going to tell me. It's the CIO might tell me something like that, or the cloud ops team might tell me something like that. But it really depends who I'm talking to. And the beauty about living in this space is having to be the translator between the two. I'm walking into meetings with engineers 1 minute, and then I'm walking into meetings with the finance team the next minute, and I need to be able to talk to both of these folks. And so, I mean, I listen and I'm honest, and that sounds simple, but it's really what it comes down to. I'm a partner. I'm not driving this ship. I'm here to figure out, how we navigate this ocean, but I'm not here driving it. Like I'm whispering in your ear, but I'm not driving the ship. So, having that attitude, and, when I started my career at Deloitte, one of the biggest things, and I think that, I mean, the training that I got right out of college when I started there was probably the most important piece of training that has really, really been able to help me through all the different stages of my career, because their attitude was always, you're a partner. You're not an auditor. I mean, I was an auditor, but we didn't call ourselves auditors. You're here to partner. And so it's always a we, not a you conversation or I conversation. And so, when I walk into these meetings and these discussions, it's always about us and how we are going to get to the end goal of compliance or bringing down or solidifying our risk posture.
I think when I hear the partnership thing, and this is where I kind of get a little cynical with that conversation, right? Because I think we in cyber are very, very frequently talking about partnership. We always want to partner, whether it's on the technical side or the non-technical side. We always talk a great game about partnership, but I've spent time in large organizations, and you can go to the business and say, hey, look, I'd really like to partner with you and make sure that I can enable your business to take the risks that it needs to be successful. And they're like, sweet, we'd love to have a partner like that. And then they're like, hey, cybersecurity, come take a look at this application we're about to push out to the public. And you're like, have you done a pen test? Where's your risk assessment? Have you done an SDLC? Like, we talk like that. And then they're like, whoa.
They're like, buzzkill.
We got to go live tomorrow. And so I think there's a disconnect between partnership and reality.
Yeah. But you have to sell the why. You have to convince them. You know what you tell them in that case? Do you want a 20 million euro fine for being non-compliant with GDPR? Is that what you want? That's how you do it. I mean, not in that tone.
No. We're going to go out and do it in that tone tomorrow.
Not that tone, not that way. But in the end,
do you want a $20 million?
Right. Yeah, you know, you just have to explain the why. A lot of times people get caught up in like compliance and using the word compliance, and it's nobody wants to listen when you use the word compliance. It's nobody. It's just like best practice. That's another one. People don't want to hear that. Like, tell me why I should care. Tell me why I need to do this. And if you're talking about consumer data, then GDPR is a real thing. CCPA is a real thing. Those are, you have to explain, what's in it for them.
How much of your time is spent educating people on the regulations? And I was going to say, it seems like your job is half asking questions, half listening.
It's not necessarily regulation. It's not necessarily regulation always, because I work when I was at Sony, it was a little less about regulation and more about risk, because it's a more mature company. It's been around a little while longer. In my role now, I'll probably spend more time talking about regulation and that sort of thing. But it's education all the time, because like I said, the business doesn't understand the tech stuff. Mm-hmm. And the tech folks oftentimes don't understand the business. And they don't understand, where the business is spending their time. They don't understand what's being prioritized by the business. Sure, when you're working with the engineering and the product teams, they've got a good sense of where there's capital being spent in the major projects. But how about the third party relationships, the relationships that are happening, weekly? Those are the things, those are the engagements that are going to tell you where the priorities are today. Something that wasn't planned 6 months ago or a year ago during last budget season.
Plus their security policy and their risk compliance governance
policies
all come into play, right?
Dude, I can spend the next, I was going to say day, it could be a month, talking straight through about supply chain risk. I mean, honestly. Yeah. But there is a lot of education for sure. There's education both ways. There's education to other security professionals. People don't understand what I do. And that's okay. They don't. And everybody talks about, the sexy side of security, pen testing and hacking and red teaming. So people don't really get it. And, you were talking about imposter syndrome at the intro, Neil. Let me tell you, I dealt with imposter syndrome for a long time when I walked into the security world, because I wasn't a pen tester. But I learned quickly, well, maybe not that quick. I wish I would have learned faster. But I learned soon enough that no, this is where it's at least for me and my skill set. And it's really no doubt, the most underrated space in security. Because really, like I said at the start, there's nothing that you're doing that isn't considering risk at some level. You may not know it, but you are.
Go ahead. Go ahead. No, Jeff, go ahead.
Well, it just tied into the fact that, whenever we talk about risk and compliance and governance, we always just lump them into the same thing, right? We just say, oh, it's GRC, it's GRC, right? But you mentioned something really interesting just a minute ago about when I shifted from, Sony to what I'm doing now, it's a little bit different, right? I have to take into account some of these other regulations. And so I'm kind of curious from your perspective, talking to younger people who are just getting into the space, right? You're not necessarily getting into GRC. You're getting into probably GRC or G, right? It's one of the, depending on the company that you get into, right? Yeah. So how do you define, like, for someone, hey, if you really like the governance side, you would probably want to be in this kind of an organization? Or how do you even find out what you would like, right?
Trial and error. have an answer for you.
Gee, I hated this
out.
job. How about the
I
next
mean,
one?
How else? That's how I figured it out.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what the hell I was doing when I first stepped into Deloitte. Yeah,
That's okay. Deloitte and the rest of the Big Four are used to just telling you to go out in there and fake it till you make it.
Right.
That's right. You know, honestly, I've been blessed in that I've worked in a number of organizations surrounded by really smart people, and I think it's the best way to learn. You're doing yourself a disservice if you're not surrounding yourself by smart people, because it's just the best way to learn. They motivate you. You learn from them. Yeah, there's something really special about that. But anyway, going back.
Yeah, I was gonna say let's pull things back in a little bit, because you started to talk about something, and it's a little bit of a rabbit trail for us, but I want to get your take on it. And we've talked about this a couple of times here on the stream, and you mentioned GDPR, and you mentioned the 15% fine. And I kind of go back to Marriott and British Airways, who scapegoated around kind of their 15% fine by going to the courts in the UK. And I don't think that that's the last and the only time that we'll see, folks kind of escape the full breadth of the GDPR. I think most of us in security had hoped that GDPR would really be that hammer to make businesses care. And so I guess from your perspective, both at Deloitte and Sony Music, and even now in your current role now, do you still feel like that GDPR is a good size hammer? Or do you think that thanks to Marriott and British Airways, we've seen just how easy it is to avoid paying some of the fines that are rightfully owed to some of these companies?
I mean, I think it's kind of early to say. I think for now, companies are still scared. And also up until this point, people invested a lot in GDPR compliance, right? And good things have come out of it, understanding where all your PI is, being able to access that easily, at a request. I think it's created good things, and I don't know if companies are going to shy away from that anytime soon, to be honest. And also, you have GDPR, but there's still CCPA in California, which, is obviously for California consumers, but how do you segregate or separate your, Californian consumers from the rest of us without incurring a whole bunch of costs and inefficiencies in how you're managing your data? So it doesn't really make sense to treat them any separate. And so, you're applying the same sort of controls and rules to all of your user and consumer base.
It's interesting when we talk about GDPR and CCPA, and I don't know if you've encountered this as well, but we talk about them in the constructs of cybersecurity because we are pretty much responsible for all the controls, 90% of the controls that kind of go around making sure that those compliance frameworks are met, if you will. But there's still this tension between whether GDPR or CCPA falls under a cybersecurity responsibility or a legal responsibility, especially with the data protection officer role kind of still in transformation. Kind of what's your feel on that, or what have you seen, or where do you think that kind of resides at?
It's a great question, and it's something that the industry is tackling still to this day. In my experience, it was that legal was responsible for understanding where all of the PI would be, and it was up to security to make sure that where that data was housed was meeting standard from a technical perspective. And so I don't think there's any way to separate the two. I mean, legal understands the intricacies of the regulation. And so personally, I think it should be something that's led by legal, but with some heavy support from security, because, obviously they understand the technical aspects of compliance.
I just wonder if we're going to have a new part of the legal departments of these larger corporations that is a technical legal person who gets both sides, right?
Yeah. I mean, that could evolve. I mean, the legal teams that I've worked with have become very in tune with security concepts at a high level. I mean, you know, obviously they're not turning into, you know, pen testers and hackers themselves, but they're understanding, you know, from a privacy compliance perspective, the requirements, you know, they're not super technical. You know, understand where the data is, it's encrypted, you know, at rest and en route. It's not, you know, it's not super technical stuff. So I could see that. I don't think that you're going to have somebody, you know, with an engineering background playing that role necessarily. It certainly don't need that.
I guess I've seen that blow up in a bad way, Alex. And what I mean by that is I've seen so without giving away too many details, right? I was at a company and there was a data incident that was there, and legal took it upon themselves to handle the incident without engaging the cybersecurity team, and then ultimately came through their legal privacy policy and said, we needed DLP. You're going to go out there and you're going to buy this solution. And I know that's probably an edge case, but I think that I think that sets a precedence to kind of what Jeff was saying, in that if you allow more cooks in the kitchen when it comes to making technology and security decisions, you end up with you know, some poisoning of the priorities across the enterprise.
Yeah, well, that's where governance comes in. Ownership and accountability has to be outlined up front, and that's where all of your policies and your standards and like I said, your governance, that's the G in the GRC that you really have to focus on it to prevent that sort of thing. You know, again, if these things aren't thought out beforehand, you're going to always fall into situations like that, and that's what governance is all about.
So when you're thinking about a governance strategy, how are you thinking about the unknown unknowns in a governance strategy? Do the frameworks like NIST 853, do CIS 20, do those frameworks help you a lot, or is there a lot of, man, we got to figure this thing out because we really don't know how to solve a lot of these problems?
No, they certainly help. They certainly help. But it's not a one size fits all at all. It's not a one size fits all. You really have to figure out how that fits into your organization, which means understanding the business itself, what it does, where it's going, what its threats are, and then apply accordingly. But yeah, absolutely, those things help. They're all sort of flavors of the same thing, different flavors of the same thing, for the most part. But it's really understanding, again, it really starts with understanding your business. And, you know, it's risk appetite, you know, what you're willing to accept and not accept, where, you know, what your crown jewels are, you know, what type of
the crown jewels.
The crown jewels. We have, you know, we've been at this for 42 minutes and we haven't even used the term crown jewels. That's a record.
That's pretty good.
That's part of your opening questions, isn't it? What is our company's crown jewels?
Yeah. And so, you know, yes, the frameworks help. Absolutely. You know, why reinvent the wheel? Somebody's already gone through the work of outlining these things. And like I said, you know, compliance isn't sexy, but it really, I mean, it's the right thing to do in most cases. You just have to make sure that it is applicable to you, you know?
All right, so since we went down the crown jewels route, what are crown jewels for people?
What do you care about? That's all it is. It's what do you care about as a business? What do I care about?
I was gonna say, what does who care about? Because cybersecurity is like, we see ones and zeros and we stop hackers.
No. Cybersecurity cares about what the business cares about. And so you look at the executive team and where the business is going, and, you know, the people who make the decisions at the top, they're telling us what the crown jewels are.
Hold on, Alex.
Uh-oh.
I'm a pen tester. Okay. Hacker's bad. Hacker's bad, right? I'm a SOC analyst. Red alerts on my Splunk environment, bad. Like, I ain't got time for none of that business stuff. Hacker's bad. If there is cross-site scripting on a page somewhere, that's bad, right? If I can hack into your account, that's bad. Like, it's all bad.
Account?
It's all bad.
What account? My Spotify account? Why do I care about that? That's what I'm saying. Like, it really depends on what we're talking about. Like, what's gonna cost us something? Whether that's a bad reputation, whether that's fees, you know, from regulatory fees. Like, what do we care about? What's gonna cause a loss in revenue? These are all the things. That's where those are our crown jewels. The things that
revenue and reputation, right?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Our brand. All those are our crown jewels.
So where's the balance? How do you, when you sit up at that top, right? When you're, because I mean, I would argue that you've got, your risk and governance kind of sits as that overall arching layer across all the terminologies and all the technologies and all the jobs inside of a cybersecurity organization. How do you have that conversation that says, I don't care about cross-site scripting on a dev page that gives me dummy data. It literally means nothing to me on the risk register. How do you have that conversation, or how do you, to your point, educate the technologist or the pen tester or the SOC analyst to say, you're spending time in areas that don't matter to the business?
Neil, I say it just like that. Just like that.
I want them to hear it. I want them to hear it from you
just
instead
like
of me.
I mean, just like that. Dude, I thank you for finding it, but really, can you find me something that's going to be...
I don't care. Can you find me something I care about, please?
Find me something on our ERP. Find me something, on our contract system. Find me something on our royalty system. Find me something there. That's what I'm going to care more about, and you should too. That's where you should be spending your time. Because again, I mean, I'm being nice about it. I say everything with a smile. So I'm going to tell you, look, it doesn't matter. But my boss might not say it that way. The CIO might not say, the CTO might not say it that way. So I'm going to tell you very nicely, very politely, awesome, good work, but no, let's try again. But again, why is he spending time doing that? Who directed him to spend time there? That's not where he should be spending his time. He should be spending his time where we care, where we have, more at risk. That's where whoever, so it's not even his fault. It's not even whoever gave him that directive was wrong. He shouldn't be spending his time there. And that's where assessments come in. That's the GRC. That's the C in GRC. So
I would argue it's the R for risk assessments, right? I mean, isn't that more R for risk assessments?
Okay, all right, yes. Either way, it's that's where yes, risk assessments is R. Yes, you got me there. But no, but C. Okay, but C is where you're continuously monitoring. C is the continuous monitoring. The self-assessing is also part of C. So, you want to make sure that you are assessing where there's potential risk. And that's where you determine where you assess, is you figure out where is there going to be an impact to us. And, that's where we're spending our resources.
So since you brought up risk assessments, one of the things that I talk about frequently is when people talk about wanting to get into pen testers, right? Because to your point, it's sexy. Everybody wants to be a pen tester, right? Things like that. I very much tell people like, hey, look, maybe go be a risk, go do risk assessment in a GRC organization, because you're still assessing controls, even if you're not doing the hands-on technical keyboard work. Can you kind of talk a little bit about risk assessments? What's your view on risk assessments? What is the importance that they play, in an organization, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think risk assessments are the only way that you could get a view of where you are. There's just no other way that you could get some real insight to where your vulnerabilities might be. Obviously you have scanning and there's tools that you can do that way. But, when I'm talking about risk assessments, I'm talking about, a point in time, ideally ideally before it's going into production, right? I mean, you can do risk assessments of things that are already out there, but ideally you're doing things before they're putting out in production, because then once they're out in production, you can just scan them automatically, right? But when you're looking at something before that point, you know, it's the only way that you can figure out whether or not you've got all the, not just the technical controls, but do you have all the processes around it? Do you have, you know, change control? Do you have user administration? Do you have a way of decommissioning? These are all the things that you get, the softer things that you would get in a risk assessment before you put something in, you know, into production where you start just scanning automatically.
Is when we talk about risk assessments and when we talk about the kind of the role that risk assessments play, would you consider risk assessments to kind of be, this is, if you never had a conversation with anybody else, you could at least use risk assessments to determine maybe at its, you know, kind of at its foundation, what the risk to the enterprise potentially could be?
Yeah, I mean, if you got the right people, you know, assessing it, and the right people looking to see, you know, if worst case scenario, there was a breach, and that's a breach of confidentiality, integrity, or availability, what that would mean to the enterprise, then yes, you could do that. You know, you asked about whether or not it was, you asked something along the lines of whether or not, you know, it's technical enough or something, Neil, before?
Yeah.
It's a good question. And you need to understand the technicalities of a platform, of an asset, yes. When you're doing an assessment, you're usually looking for specific things, right? You know, you have a list of things that you want to look at. You want to look at how users are administered. You want to look at, you know, data controls. You want to look at, you know, operations around it. So when you're looking at these things, you have to understand the technical ends of it. But you don't have to be an engineer necessarily. That's not to say that this isn't challenging enough work for an engineer, because for the engineer, the challenging part for the engineer is understanding what this means to the business. That's right. The hard part for the engineer is, if this isn't in place, well, I've got to find mitigation. I've got to find, you know, he can probably maybe figure out some sort of remediation if it's technical, but what if it's a process? And, you know, what if it's a critical system that is, you know, legacy and it's clunky and there's lots of manual process around it. And so, you know, it really goes hand in hand. And I don't have an answer for you directly, but I do think that risk assessments and auditors, we get a bad rep. And I think that, you know, engineers and the more technical folks tend to turn up the
steal the spotlight
a little bit. And that's okay.
You gotta look at yourself in the mirror every morning and say, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and
seriously,
people like me.
That's right.
And then go do your job. Yeah.
Affirmations daily. But yeah, I mean, it's certainly, it's a good question, and it's not something that you know, folks like me in my world don't feel and experience on a regular basis.
No, that's fair. And I want to. Oh, go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead, Jeff.
I was just going to piggyback on some of that with some of the challenges that you see. Like you walk into an organization and you're assessing risk, trying to adhere to compliance requirements and regulations, and then build a policy for governing how well they're doing, right? So do you see them in multiple organizations struggling mostly with the process, mostly with the technology, mostly with lack of budget? Where would you say most organizations are failing in their GRC plan, or have the most challenge with it? Maybe not necessarily failing.
Awareness.
Interesting.
People don't know what the policy is. People don't know what they're supposed to do and not supposed to do.
So that email that I get like once a quarter that I'm supposed to read that I don't,
you read it?
I'm supposed to read it.
You didn't read it, did you? You didn't read it, did you? Yeah.
Well,
it's awareness.
that depends on if my GRC rep is actually on the stream or not tonight.
but
then of
I mean,
course I read it cover to cover.
But I mean, that's a great point about awareness, though. But I mean, is there not some? Have we not? Are people not tone deaf in organizations? I mean, I think we would all agree that there needs to be more awareness. I can tell you that on YouTube, my security awareness videos on YouTube get the most views because everybody agrees that awareness is key. Is the company not tone deaf though?
I mean, I think it really depends on how you're delivering your awareness, and people are fatigued by email. People are fatigued by, all of the, I shouldn't say all of the, it's usually like once a year. Fatigue's not the right word in this case. People are just bored by, the annual training they get in their inbox once a year. They have to take.
Is it only once a year? My gosh, it's got to be more often than that, isn't it?
Well, I know that. I know this, you know this, but a lot of companies don't. And so
I swear it is like once a month. It's got to be.
I mean, it should be at least once a month. And for me, I think it's a really interesting space because it doesn't really matter how many fancy tools we have and how many technical controls we have in place. If people don't know that they're not supposed to click on the link, all that goes to hell.
How are we still having this conversation? That's my point. Is like we're clearly failing at our ability to send that awareness message if they're still clicking on the link.
It's gotta be done in different formats. We all know that we learn differently, right? All of us learn in different ways. And so that doesn't change when you walk in the door at your job every day. You have to really target your training in different formats, different ways. People are going to absorb it different, and they're going to absorb it differently. And so you have to find.
But as a compliance officer, and you're trying to have governance. Governance basically means that everyone has to be treated the same. So therefore, everyone has to go through the same training, irrespective of whether they're a kind of person that you could tell 1,000 times that they don't get it, or the kind of person that you tell them once and they got it forever. It doesn't matter. No. You have to treat each one the same, right? Isn't that the problem?
That's not true. No, that's not true. That's not true, because your compliance will tell you that you need to train on a, yearly basis. You can get away with that. You train one time a month. You're obviously going to be complying with that. You're going to be meeting that requirement, right? But how you train isn't outlined by any of these frameworks or anything like that. You just need to make sure that your user base is getting trained some way, somehow, and it doesn't really matter, which format and how that's delivered. But it's really up to you as an organization to really figure out different methods for delivering the content. I did something really cool before the pandemic. We did these escape rooms where we had, maybe you guys have heard of them, but we had somebody come in, like a third party come in and set up these escape rooms where, employees would have to come in and do, the puzzles that were all based on cyber concepts. So, don't leave your badge out, don't use your pet dog as your password, all these different things. And it was a huge hit, and people walked out of there really, because it generated conversation and discussion, and it was a huge hit. And then, of course, the apocalypse of COVID hit, and so we haven't gone back to that. But yeah, I mean, it's really
we're all living our escape room. Please let me out. I clearly failed. I've been living in my house for the last year and 2 months.
Trying to get out of it. Yes, indeed. But yeah, like I said, to me, it's awareness or lack thereof. And
so you're CISO for today. So starting tomorrow, you wake up tomorrow, you're CISO. You wake up and you've got this passion to fix awareness tomorrow. What are the 3 things that you do in your organization tomorrow to fix awareness?
Oh, okay. Thanks for putting me on the spot.
welcome to the hot seat.
Well, I mean, I think first and foremost is I would need to get a sense of okay, so I'm new to the role or I've been CISO?
We could say you've been CISO.
I'm a Virgo, and so I need to understand all of these.
Oh Jesus!
All these facts
you're okay.
Before
all
we
right.
get into it. All right.
You're already
I got
CISO.
a question for your question. So I've been CISO, so I understand where the pitfalls have been and what has worked and what hasn't worked.
Yes.
No, you know what? No, in all seriousness, for sure. I mean, for me personally, I think like live hands-on training would have to be one of those 3 routes of awareness that I'd want to take. I'd want to figure out a way of getting like live sessions, whether that's over
like an
Zoom
instructor in your company.
An instructor, yeah.
Wow.
Where you can engage, yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, I'm just thinking in my current organization, which isn't thousands and thousands of people. So obviously, if it was thousands of people, then you'd want to get a sense of where your weak links are. When I did phishing simulations in one of my last roles, I had a good sense of where those pockets were. What groups of people were more susceptible to that sort of thing, and so that would help me target what my training would be. I would go out to specific groups of people. Because either they were more susceptible or they were the people who had more privileged access, right? And so, you'd start there. So live training, I mean, I'm telling you, if I can get some money and some resource to do these escape rooms, they were so fun. That would be my second. And my third would probably be, I mean, I know it's not the most favorite, but I think it's really helpful is to have something in writing, something that people can refer back to, whether that's email or something, on an intranet site, something where people can navigate to in a moment where they're like, I'm not really sure. So it's not just, receiving something, here and there, but it's also having a place that they can go to. So those are my 3 answers: live training, my something interactive, right? Something fun and interactive, and then having either it's email or something that people can go back to. Something a place that people can refer to when they have questions or unsure.
The live training is something I'd never heard. That was a new one for me.
I'm curious on the live training. Would you say that person, like you're in charge of hiring that person? Would they be would they be an educator? Would they be a curriculum writer? Would they be a technical person? Would they
that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, there's so many people out there that do this now, that deliver cyber training. So you'd want somebody who has the know-how to answer questions. And if they're an educator, that's even better. But I would start. I mean, he or she.
But you got the budget to hire one. What resume do you try to gather? Like, who do you look for?
Well, there's people out there that are cyber training experts, so that's what I would do.
Okay.
There are people whose job it is to deliver cyber training, and so that's what I would. That's the type of person I would want to hire.
That's interesting. I want to pivot on you to
why is that interesting?
I never thought about bringing somebody on site to do cybersecurity awareness training, right? When we think about And I go back to my days in the military, right, where we had these stupid CBT based trainings, you know, and
videos you click through, and
oh my
35 minutes
God.
later, you're
Oh,
finished with module one.
it's so painful. And then they just evolved to video based trainings with examples of crappy, phishing examples and things like that. I never thought that there would be value to no soapbox, bug man. I promise, no soapbox, no soapbox. I promise.
Maybe.
I
maybe
just
a little.
when I think about your role, either as GRC or as future CISO of a company, I guess I just never thought about the value that having somebody that you could talk to from a security awareness perspective would actually resonate as a security awareness training opportunity.
The thing is, you and I can sit in these trainings, and somebody adjacent to us in IT, somebody in data, and we get it.
Yeah.
But there's folks in marketing, in finance, in operations that don't. They just don't. And that's nothing to say, against them, and they're not incompetent in any way, but it doesn't seem real to them, first of all. People don't get how prevalent phishing is. People don't get, because it hasn't happened to them. People don't get how prevalent social engineering is. And so it is key, in my opinion, especially with those folks, is to get somebody who can answer their questions. So many times I would hear, when people would get phished, people would get social engineered. I didn't know. I didn't realize. And these are the same people that have gotten the trainings. These are the same people that have been through the simulations. You need somebody to be able to explain it to them and allow them to answer questions or ask questions, because you said it. It's the video-based training that, like, okay, we watch this. It goes in one ear, out the other. I check the box. I get my little certificate. I'm not going to get, yelled at by the compliance team. I can move on, right?
I have mine printed up and framed in my office, actually.
Exactly.
All of the certificates for the last 5 years.
Exactly. And so, if you get, and it's obviously not cheap. You obviously need, some resource behind it. Some time and all that. But, like, to me, if you're asking me what I think would be most productive and most effective, then it's that, and that's my number one, is getting somebody. And we're not talking like day-long training. We're talking, you can deliver the hour-long awareness training that they get each year in a live format, right? And have somebody walk through this and allow for questions and engagement and back and forth, because people don't get it. People don't get it. You and I live in this world, so we understand it. But people oftentimes just don't.
I'm glad you include me in there and leave Jeff out of that, because we know he's on that sales team that
I have reported 3 phishing emails in the last 2 months. I'll have you know.
Amazing.
It's like a little right in the Outlook. You got your little button right up top. It's like,
and when I said you and
I'm not giving my credentials.
You too, okay? You too.
No, it's
right.
okay.
It was just Neil's invitation to give me grief. He doesn't need much of an opening. Little sliver will do.
Last topic before I turn it over to the audience for questions, and just a reminder to our audience, as you can, we've got questions in queue. Go ahead and continue to drop those questions in there. We'll, moderators will continue to grab them, pick them up, put them in queue. Let's talk cyber insurance really quick, because this is always my funnest non-technical topic to kick while it's on the ground, is cyber insurance. Has cyber insurance perpetuated risk deference in the cybersecurity organization?
Short answer is no.
Oh,
okay. It has not, because, first of all, cyber insurance is such a new thing that people don't really know how policies work. People don't really, I mean, it's in the short term, if you're breached, who cares about your insurance? You know, if you get out there because you were, because you leaked a whole bunch of personal information or, sensitive business information, A, who knows how these policies are working, and B, who cares? From a branding perspective, like who cares? And so no, I don't think so. It helps the conversation, yes, but it is not the end all be all by any means.
I'm waiting to see if Jeff wants to chime in on that one. That's the pause in there on that one.
No, Neil and I tend to be on the same page on this one, which is why we both reacted, really, because that was exactly the opposite of how we've responded to each other, mostly because it just seems like boards say, hey, we've got to be covered for risk and compliance if we're breached. Well, okay, do we have insurance for that? Okay, make sure you got that. Gee, what else do we need? I think we're covered, right? It seems like that's their reaction. And it the ones that have hit the media as far as cyber insurance goes really haven't panned out that well. The insurance companies have figured out ways of saying, oh no, that was an act of God somehow, right?
Exactly.
So I don't think it has been a good thing. But it still seems to be perceived as a good thing by the people who are making decisions. That's why I reacted when you said that.
Yeah, we're on the same page. I think that people think that it's gonna protect them, but in the end, I don't think it's proven to be that great.
But they still think it's gonna protect them. That's the problem.
But I mean, people think that the world is flat, so.
We were literally just talking about that at Discord.
That is not going to be a rabbit trail tonight. I mean, my son sent me a couple of YouTube links on it. I was like, I don't even want to go there because then YouTube's going to send me to all these other crazy things.
Right. Yeah,
so I want to break that one down for our viewers. Alex just said, if you think insurance is going to protect you, you're also stupid enough to believe the world is flat.
You must be a flat earther.
I didn't exactly say that, but
no. I think that's the new quote.
I
mean, hey, Alex, welcome. By the way, Neil's been misquoting me for years.
That's what I heard.
Like, no, I didn't. No, I didn't.
All right. Well, now that we've got Alex's view on cyber insurance out of the way, we're gonna head over to some questions. Now, again, remind the audience, drop questions in chat. We'll filter them to Alex, myself, or if you are absolutely desperate to get an answer to Jeff. Alex, this one looks like it's for you. From Devnal Zen says, question for us new people. Explain to us how GRC will affect those of us that are going into red, blue, or purple team. So we've got somebody who's going into red, blue, or purple team tomorrow, and you've got to give them some words of advice from a GRC perspective as they start their first day of the job on a red, blue, or purple team. How is GRC going to affect them?
Yeah, it's a good question. So like we might have talked about earlier a little bit, what your red teaming, what your blue teaming, what your purple teaming really is based on, ideally, what is impactful to the business. And that's driven a lot by risk assessments. How you're conducting your testing is probably governed by the G, the governance part. If there's any sort of compliance requirements for making sure that certain systems are, secure, for lack of a better word, then that's obviously going to drive, what your targets are, for red teaming, blue teaming, purple teaming.
Gotcha. Another one from Bugman says, what certifications and training do you recommend for a role in GRC?
Ooh, good question. So I have a CISSP. CISO is always also good. some people might try and convince you to go depending on your background, might try and convince you to go the CISSM route, but which is like the managerial leg of the CISSP. I would say just go for the CISSP. So those are my two.
So we have a CISSP study group here. What's kind of your you can tell I'm a huge fan of top threes, right? What are your top three recommendations for people who are going to CISSP? I know we've got several people in chat that are going for their CISSP. What are kind of some of your top three recommendations as folks kind of go in for their CISSP?
Take a class or like a readiness class, for sure. Get in front of somebody who has had experience taking it, who knows the formatting, who understands the language, and take like a prep course. 100%, that's my number one. Number two is, along those same lines, take as many practice tests as possible. And number three is don't stress. Don't stress yourself out.
How hard was the CISSP for you?
It was hard. Scale of 1 to 10. I don't know, like an 8. It was hard.
It was hard.
Yeah, I thought it was hard. It was hard. I wasn't planning on taking it, and then my boss basically told me, if you want to get promoted, you have to take it. And so I wasn't in a mindset to be having to take this certification. And then I realized she was serious. And so, yeah.
Oh, wait a minute.
So then,
that was real, right? Okay.
Yeah. And so, I think the difficulty in it was more like, having to get myself in a state of prepping for an exam. Like, it'd been a little while, and, I was a CISA years ago, but I wasn't really planning on doing that, and I thought those days were behind me. And so, that was before I came into security. When I came into security and realized that, certs are a big thing for a lot of people, not everyone, but for a lot of people. And my boss then basically, dropped this bomb on me. Then it became just like, a mentality thing. But, it's real. Definitely, you can't wing it. That's for sure. And yeah, so definitely take a prep course, some practice tests, and try not to stress yourself out about it.
So, question for you: if you were in your boss's shoes, would you tell you the same thing? Like, would you say, yeah, retroactively now, I certainly think that that helped me, right? Would you pay it forward and say,
well,
if I'm in a position to have someone get promoted, I'm going to tell them they got to get certified? Would you say that?
I don't know if I would say that, to be honest, but I do think that my boss at that point, so remember when I talked about imposter syndrome? This is the same boss that sort of witnessed me go through that. And I think that this was her way of getting me to prove to myself that I was supposed to be where I was.
Yeah.
And so she was really great at that sort of thing. And she saw something in me that I didn't necessarily see, to be honest. And so I think, I don't know if she would have done that with anybody else. I don't know. I think that she did that with me.
So you might, depending on the situation.
I think my initial reaction is no, but you're right. I think I might. I think she was really great for that, and
interesting.
I can't even thank her enough for not just that, but just all in all.
So you're glad that she recommended or kind of told.
Yeah.
Recommended to you if you ever want
recommended me very softly. She didn't come out and say.
If you
come out and say,
if you want to keep your job forever,
yeah.
this exact job,
said it, right.
Don't worry about a certification.
She was very. I didn't even realize that's what she was doing until after she did it. That's how good it was.
That's
till I
truly
told
an
her,
artful
I was like,
boss.
Till I showed up and I'm like, I passed. She was like, oh great, now we can promote you. And I'm like, oh, that's what that meant. Okay, all right.
But I'm gonna ask the pragmatic question, right? Because I think it's one thing to say if you're gonna get promoted, you got to have CISSP. Let's talk about how much of that information that you learned from CISSP did you actually use, or do you actually use on a day-to-day basis?
30% maybe. I mean, seriously, 30-40%. I mean, on a day-to-day basis, that's probably what I use.
Yeah.
Did it help me understand a lot and connect a lot of dots that I didn't necessarily have at that point? Yes, 100%. I would do it all over again 10 times for sure.
Plus, it probably gave you the confidence to overcome the imposter syndrome.
Yeah. It sure did.
That's interesting. What do you mean that CISSP gave you the confidence to overcome the imposter syndrome? What about, was it just the fact that you passed it?
I think it was part of it. I mean, there's a bit of a prestige with it, if we're honest, when you have that acronym after your name, there's some prestige to it, at least from my perspective. I think it gives you a little bit of credibility, and for somebody who, again, has walked into a world where, all of the pen testers, all of the engineers are kind of looking at you like, and you come in and you've got the certification. It gives you, like I said,
see the certification on my card? I can talk.
Exactly.
Be quiet. Be quiet.
And that's not to say that I wouldn't be where I am without it.
Yeah.
That's not to say that at all. But if we're honest, and we're here, we're all about the honesty here.
Yeah.
I think it definitely helped, especially at that stage in my career. I had moved from tech risk into cyber risk, and it wasn't something that I had necessarily sought after. The CISO had asked me to come into her group. She had saw that, as a risk professional, that I could do the job that she had open, which at that point was a cyber risk position. And I wasn't even looking down that way. Like I wasn't, that wasn't even on, it wasn't, I wasn't even thinking about that. And she said, no, look, I think that you could do this. And, when I finally, took her a year to convince me to do it. And when she finally did, it was by far the best decision of my career, like without a doubt. And this just helped. It just helped, the certification. I would recommend it to anybody.
So now I think a follow-on to that, I see one from Ransom Bear, and on that same note of certifications, Ransom Bear asked, what degrees does she hold? Apparently, they only heard that you were Temple and ALS. So what other degrees do you have other than CISSP?
Well, I studied computer science, and I had a minor in business administration. So it was that combination that got me into Deloitte when I graduated college, because they were generally looking for management information systems students. So students out of like the business school that had the technical degree out of the business school, but I was out of the science school with a computer science degree. But because I had the business minor, I sort of filled that sort of profile that they were looking for. So comp sci with business administration as a minor.
As you look back, coming out of college, looking at Deloitte and watching the big fours like PwC, Deloitte, EY, KPMG, as well as other companies drop their need for a 4-year requirement, especially in the cyber and the tech consulting space. If you had to talk to somebody today who was coming out of college and trying to make that decision between, security cert, not security, a degree or a cert program or a boot camp or the military, Just looking at your experience and going into Big Four, would you still say absolutely, definitely go get that degree? Or do you think that the opportunities are a little bit more diverse now?
I think that opportunities are more diverse, but personally, I think there's something about college and university that sets you apart in terms of, you're getting not just the technical training and courses, the liberal arts that are required. There's all these different, sort of tracks and requirements that mold you, as an individual. And on top of that, in most cases, in a lot of cases, the lifelong relationships that you build in those years, they're formative years. You're like, you're an adult, but not really. And so a lot of times the people that you meet and the connections that you make end up being lifelong. So I'm a little bit biased, and not for any reason other than that. I just think that there's so much benefit to going through this experience where, again, you're kind of like in this weird limbo of like being on your own, but not really. You're like, you're an adult, but like, you're still a student. And so I think, and there's so many there's so many possibilities and so many resources in colleges and such that give you, connections with different industries and different networking opportunities. So personally, and it's my only experience, so I'm biased, but I would say that's, I think, the best route. It's not the only route. I certainly know a lot of folks who haven't necessarily gone that route and are doing, great things. I think really what it comes down to is understanding yourself, which is a journey, and that's constantly evolving, and therefore being honest with yourself, and what you want, and just being open to learn. Like, if you go out there and you don't know something, go figure it out. If ask questions, don't pretend you know something that you don't. It's the best learners that are very honest about what they don't know, that really get ahead. And so yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's one track that's better than the next, but as long as you're always open and to learn, and you're flexible and you're honest.
No, and I think that's fair. I think we always ask the question, right? Because there's a lot of people out there that struggle with the construct of college, especially I think we have conversations where the colleges, especially on the tech side, when we think about security operations, red teaming, blue teaming, purple teaming, college will never be able to keep up technologically with how fast that part of the job in cyber always changes. And so there's always that concern, which is, what's the right path for me to get me to be a fully functioning career individual as quickly as possible. And so we always ask that question. There is no right or wrong answer. It's it definitely becomes that as you look back on your experiences, what is it that you take away that you would share with folks who are trying to contemplate that decision? I think that the experience that you talked about, I think that's very important.
I started my career in the late 80s, like 89, right? And like LinkedIn didn't exist. Now, literally, if you go find a job and you're just a doofus at a former job, they can find 150 people who knew you in that role and say, hey, what is he like? And they're not asking a former boss, so it's not an HR issue, right? They're asking people who know people, because it's all connectedness based on LinkedIn, Facebook. Yeah. And so
it's all about your network.
You can't afford to be that way anymore.
No.
Like you used to be able to get away with it. Now you just flat out can't.
Yeah. Yeah. and dude, karma, man. That's
Yeah, but back in the day,
That's real.
we kept wishing for karma on people. Come on, they gotta get theirs. And then all of a sudden they get promoted, and you're like, how did that happen?
How did that happen?
Because HR was never allowed to answer the question directly.
They might be okay at work, but what's home life like? You know, right?
There we go.
Am I right? No, it's true.
Exactly.
It's true. Karma works in mysterious ways, but yeah, I'm 100% serious about that. I think
that's so funny.
It's really your relationships and your networking, and the bridges you build really will take you far in your career.
100%. All right, I want to move on to another question from Angry at Me, but he says, what is the most difficult part about your job?
A job.
No. What's difficult right now is trying to figure out which one she wants to rat out first.
The most difficult part of my job. Yeah, I mean, I think for me is I do a lot of writing in my job. And I'm ADHD. I might have mentioned that at some point. And so for me personally, and this isn't like specific to GRC, this is just me as a professional, is, not letting all of the reports and all of the assessments and all the policies that I need to review or I need to write pile up. So that's my challenge, my personal challenge. But I would say generally in GRC is, what I talked about before, is like really getting a good sense of where priorities are from the business and what what the future of the business is going to look like and what that might mean to us from a risk perspective. That's not an easy task at all. Those things could change. Markets change and fluctuate, and so those things might shift from time to time. So staying on top of that.
I imagine it's like being an interpreter where the languages, the nuances, uh-oh. Did we just lose her internet?
I think we may have.
Uh-oh.
I'm here.
Nope. Oh, there you go. Okay. There we go. That was weird. We lost you for some reason.
I don't know what that was.
Oh, God. Okay. Okay.
Oh, I forgot what I was saying.
That's good. I think I was asking.
No, you're talking about the languages.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Translations, etc.
Yeah. No, it's a real thing. Yeah. It's not easy. It's, and oftentimes it's really just me, it's just me in my role, because I am the one who is least technical, right? When I'm in a room of engineers, I'm the least technical. When I'm in the room with business folks, I'm the most technical. And it's
the least business. You're
exactly.
You're always in a room with other people who are better and weaker,
so
right?
It's a game of interpretation all the time. And staying ahead of that is not easy. Making sure that I'm part of the discussions that could impact how we're looking at our risk, how we're looking at our assets, how we're planning, like what's to come. So yeah, I mean, there's some challenges for sure.
When I think about like the security ops teams that I've led, right? I mean, I know incident responders who are like, it stresses me to think about that we might have a breach on my watch, right? There might be an incident that's happening on my watch. What's your equivalent of kind of that, God, I don't want this to happen on my watch sort of thing?
The incessant fear. What's the incessant fear?
Yeah, that's a good one. Well, I mean, it's that's something that I assessed was associated to that incident.
Yeah.
It's something that I said, this is good.
Yeah.
But it was breached later, you know, it's the same thing. You know, I said it was good.
You signed off on it. It was below
I signed
the
off
risk
on
line.
Yeah.
It was
yeah,
good.
I signed off on it. You know, I signed off on it at a point in time. Something might have changed that I wasn't made aware of, or not. I might have missed it. I might have missed something. I think about that all the time, especially in third parties. You know, especially, you know, considering supply chain risk and how real that is. You know, when we give a go on a vendor, what if it gets popped and it affects us?
What's
I
mentally?
said it was cool.
Yeah, and what do you?
Cool. Let's do it.
What's your mental counterpoint to that? Like, how do you sleep at night? You know, instead of like being awake for 3 days straight, going, "Dear God, did I assess that thing the right way?"
I drink alcohol.
Did we not tell you that this was a family friendly stream? We can't do this.
Too late. Yeah, I mean, you know, there's so what do I do? Well, on those engagements,
after you drink alcohol,
after
I call up a peer and I get them to also sign off. So if I'm going down, you're going down with me.
You're calling me over,
and then I buy him a bottle of whiskey. Like, jump in, the water's warm.
I need you to sign off on this too.
So what do you love about your job? Like if you said, I have to retire, I'm leaving, I'm gonna go on a beach and retire, but oh man, I'm gonna miss, what is it?
I have an answer, but I feel like it's
is it trite?
She's gonna say the people. She's gonna say the people. She's gonna say the people.
That's what I was gonna say.
No,
yeah.
no, that's fair. That's actually, I was expecting to hear that.
You wouldn't let me get away with that, Jeff.
I wouldn't, but she's way nicer than you.
Okay,
so I'm going to ask you the second. Like,
okay.
Besides people, it can't be the people in the relationships. Nothing. What would you miss about your job other than the people?
Well, I always kind of liked the trying to find something wrong aspect of it. You know, like when you're assessing and you're auditing.
You're like a Where's Waldo fan.
Yeah. So that would be, you know, when I would get into, you know, like especially like the more complex engagements and reviews, you know, finding, you know, that one thing that was like, oh, this is a big deal. So, you know, that
would play out, especially with the supplier stuff, the third party stuff, right?
Well, yeah, especially, in my specific role, yes. I mean, you know, you've got assessors who are looking at, you know, internally developed assets and products, but you know, somebody who's looking at, you know, cloud configurations and things like that. But I would, that's the part I would miss. I used to, especially when I was external, that would be like the fun part of my job. I'm internal now. So your delivery is a little bit different, but it is, you know, because I mean, that's where you add the most value, right? Or mitigation, and you're helping figure out the solution. And you know, that's probably what I would miss if I hit the lottery tomorrow and I stopped doing this and I started making shoes for a living. That's what I would miss the most.
So that's where you would go. It would be making shoes for a living.
Yes, because I've done it before. Nice. I've done it before. So I would make shoes. Yeah.
Jeff wants your number. He's gonna go. Can I get some shoes? Can we get some shoes going on?
Jimmy Choo's got nothing on you.
That's right. Back to questions.
I went from socks to shoes.
Oh God, this is terrible.
Sorry, I had to do it. It's horrible. I know. It's so
It's just
bad.
GRC
I
humor,
told
right?
myself I wouldn't say it. I wouldn't say it. But there you go.
Alex, Neil brings it out in all of us. There's a lot of things that we vowed we would never say that Neil's pushed us to that limit.
Isaki one says, is auditing part of GRC? I think this is a common conversation where we talk about IT audit, cybersecurity audit, and GRC. What's the relationship that exists, between GRC audit, just cybersecurity in general, and audit?
Yeah, it's part of like the compliance aspect. If we're talking external auditing, even if it's internal audit as an independent auditor, then yes, it's part of the compliance element of GRC.
Would you view audit as a great way to get into cybersecurity? People who are coming from audit and trying to get into cybersecurity?
That's how I did it. I think it's a good way. If you're trying to get into GRC, then absolutely. It's audit is basically understanding risk, right? You're auditing against controls that are put in place to mitigate risk. Yeah. And so it's 100% a good way to get into cyber risk. It's a good way to get into security, period. If you're interested in going, the more traditional, security engineer route, if you have the skills to do it and you start an audit, why not? Personally, I think that when you're audit, you oftentimes, again, understand business, right? I think, those two things hand in hand really, really, really give you an edge.
So Bugman follows up on the audit comment, and he's like, I'm an auditor, and I noticed that a lot of people in GRC lack the soft skills of communication. I see them struggle to communicate with stakeholders. Do you see this as a trend as well?
No, I don't, honestly.
No, Bugman, you're wrong.
But I think GRC in what capacity? What are we talking about? There's obviously always outliers. There's people out there in every industry, every area, every space that probably shouldn't be, or maybe need some, development. But in my experience, GRC is the space where you're engaging the most with stakeholders. It's not the tech folks. It's not the pen testers. It's not the network engineers. It's not the security engineers. Those folks they're not interfacing with the business as much. They just aren't, through nature of the work. It just
I was going to say, is that through nature of the work, or is that by choice or design?
No, nature of the work. If you're a pen tester, right? You work for an organization. It's your job. You're on the red team. It's your job to be hacking away at systems. Who are you talking to? You're talking to the application owner, the system support folks. You're not talking to the users. Why would you be talking to the users? So it's in my experience, it's the GRC folks, the folks who are understanding the place of the business, the business process, where the business is going, because that's what all of your policies and all of your your supporting procedures, all of that is based off of what the business is doing, right? And it's key processes, right? That's it's all based off of that. And so, the people who are developing all that are interfacing with all those key stakeholders. So, generally, I would say I would disagree with him or her.
So what about a follow on to that one is, do you think auditing doesn't get the respect it deserves as an auditor?
100%. But I get it. I get it. I get it. There have been many auditors that I've seen firsthand in my day who've come in with a checklist and they're like, yes, yes, no, yes, yes, no.
Yeah.
And when you look at it, this doesn't apply to us. This doesn't make sense. We don't even care about this. And so, I get it, people, we get a bad rep because there's a lot of us who, go in thinking that there is, sort of a one size fits all, and there is not. There is not. You really need to understand your business, its resources, its size, what it cares about, what it doesn't care about, and go from there. You can't go the other way around. And a lot of times auditors do that, literally. I remember having these checklists. I remember being given these audit plans, they're called, that are generic, and you walk into, in some cases they might be, in other cases, again, it's not ideal. It's not sexy, but most of these things are bare minimums and things that you should be doing anyway. The nuance is you should be doing them in a way that fits your organization, right? And that makes sense for your organization. And, a lot of times auditors miss that bit. Auditors also don't, like we said before, we were joking about it, but it's true. Auditors, they don't have any ownership in any of this. So they come in, they tell you what's wrong, and then they leave. And so, people kind of look at them like, you came in here, you call us out, and now you're gone, right? Yeah. And so I understand it, but yeah, it's not totally accurate.
I've always tried to treat audit like, especially on at least on the SecOps side, right? Audit can be your best friend, right? Yeah. If you want the business to make changes, tell audit where all the dead bodies are at.
Yeah, it's true.
Hey,
it's true.
You might want to check out
100%.
But
it's true. Yeah,
with your translating ability, it seems like we talk a lot on this channel about business cases and helping people translate between security and engineering and IT and what the business is actually trying to do. It seems like a GRC person in an organization would be the best friend of someone trying to write a good business case, because they're the one person that actually understands both sides of the equation. What do you think about that? Have you ever had anyone come to talk to you about, hey, I'm writing a business case, I'm trying to justify XYZ expenditure, I'd love to pick your brain? Have you ever had that?
Yeah. Oftentimes when the business, and I keep saying the business, but I mean everybody outside of IT, right? Or engineering, right? Anybody non-technical. Oftentimes, when they need something, right, from IT, and I'm speaking from a position of being outside of IT or tech, right? Security in my world isn't necessarily part of the tech organization. It's separate. And so there's security, there's tech, and then there's business, right? I have been in several situations where the business has said, look, we kind of need this thing, but we can't really get through to them. Them is IT.
They're talking this other language.
Yeah.
They don't talk my language.
Yeah. and vice versa, vice versa. There's been times where IT has said, "Oh, they're not getting it. They're not getting it." And
Neil's smiling because he's like, I know. And they don't get it.
Yeah. It's my superpower. I would say that's literally, what I would say is my biggest value add is the ability to walk that line, is the ability to translate between the two. And it seems like a simple thing, but it's not.
I'll agree with that. Like I had a guy who ran risk and governance with me at Abbott, and he was former Air Force like myself. He knew a lot of the tech stuff background that I'd come from at the NSA and things like that. But we worked really, really well together because I still fancy myself. I can talk to people. I'm not completely recluse like most tech folks are, right? And cyber folks. But there's definitely some businesses where I just don't understand your risk appetite. I just don't understand how to talk to you. And it is a nice partnership to have when you have that technology and that risk relationship that can kind of come to the conversation and play off of each other very, very well to have that conversation.
Yeah, it goes really far to be able to have that for sure. Both sides of the house are equally important. And when you can marry those two, then, that's where the magic happens.
100%. All right, so this will be the last question for tonight. This is from Stuns and Roses. Stuns and Roses says, how do you go about creating an accurate risk matrix? What are some of your considerations when making one of these charts?
Great question. And the answer to that is it is constantly being updated and revisited and reviewed and making sure that it is still accurate. You start off with figuring out where your pitfalls are. That's through assessments, that's through discussion, that's through testing. And once you've figured out what those are, you're just constantly going back to that and making sure that nothing's changed, that there isn't anything new to consider, that you've got the right people, because oftentimes you've got a risk register, you've got a risk and control matrix, you've got all these controls outlined, but you don't have owners. So making sure that you've got owners defined, and that those are accurate and reflective of practice is key.
Awesome. All right, so that's the last question for tonight. Alex, listen, I have absolutely enjoyed having you as my guest. Thank you so very much. I want to thank you on behalf of the entire community, on behalf of all of my moderators. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. Jeff, I don't know if you want to give actually you're on this side of me right now. Do you want to give any thanks to Alex before we send her along our way?
Absolutely. Neil and I have been on one side of cyber insurance. We've been on one side of GRC. I think Joel actually called it a garbage job, but he also, but in the same vein, he said, you got to do the garbage jobs because they are so important to the business. And just like what you said, you were at the centerpiece of so many parts of the business, the technical, the business side, CFOs, CIOs, COOs, like that is the key to understanding your role, is translating all of that. And he said that position, even though some people might not enjoy it, you will know more about the business and what they're going to do. And you will be a power broker in the company over time because you did that job. So
100%.
He used the term garbage job, but he elevated it to be a compliment. It sounds bad, but it really wasn't.
Thank you. Thank
you.
So,
so glad you were on, and your insight was awesome. Thank you.
This was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I hope we can do this again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
On average, I think we all three have a full head of hair too. On average.
I can share.
on that note, I'm going to send the two of you back over to the green room, and I'm going to say goodbye to my audience. Thank you so much, Alex.
Good night.
Jeff, I'll see you next week.
I know. I
sometime.
had to end on hair. I know.
You had to end on hair pie. All right, everybody. Awesome stream tonight. Fantastic. Listen, I truly appreciate all of you being here tonight. Hopefully you guys got a fantastic opportunity to get some questions into Alex. We promised you that we'd get some GRC time in, and we're going to see more of this. We're continuing to make inroads in on folks who are in the GRC space. We're going to continue to bring you some more of these other sides of cybersecurity. Listen, make sure you link up with Alex, right? Hit that exclamation point guest. If you haven't already sent her some cyber and security love, hit that exclamation point guest, get her LinkedIn's, send her a bunch of connection requests. Fantastic person to know and to be associated with in this industry. Make sure you hit that exclamation point socials. Don't forget, actually tomorrow, CISSP study group is canceled. Joel and Brandon have brought that one down to once a week, just given some of the IRL things that they've got going on. But Friday morning, we're back. Tea with a Hacker. We're going to be doing our 2 interviews with California and Cyber Lola. And then you've got Tipsy Cyber Friday night with Jack. Listen, on behalf of me, behalf of my moderators, behalf of the entire cyber and security staff, thank you so very much for tuning in tonight. And listen, whether you're on the red side, whether you're on the blue side, whether you're still deciding, keep learning. I'll see y'all next time.